Hello, welcome to this video on stratified random sampling. To select a stratified random sample, it's kind of like an SRS, but we're going to stratify or split them up by some uh, topic before we do the SRS. So first we divide the population into groups called strata. And then and all the strata have to be similar in some way, whether it's gender, whether it's grade, whether it's color of hair, something that's important to the response. And then we choose a separate SRS from each of the stratum, and then combine those SRSs to be the full sample. For instance, let's say I'm polling Irondale students about a gender issue, women playing professional football in the NFL. And I thought it would be interesting to look at the take of females versus males, and I wanted to make sure they were equally represented. So I would divide the population into men and women, and then you do an SRS in each of these. So then you go through all steps where you number all the men, use your calculator to pick a sample, figure out when to stop, and then identify your sample. And then you do that same thing for the women. Now there are two types. You can do proportionate or disproportionate. So if you wanted to do a proportionate one, you would figure out how many total people are at the school, and then you'd figure out what percentage of them are men, and then that percentage it should be the people that you use in the study. A disproportionate one might be, even though maybe the school has 52% males, um, you still might want to just keep the same amount in each group, so 100 men and 100 women. Another place where you see disproportionate uh, as stratified samples is by race. Maybe there's some races that aren't very represented, like Native Americans in our school, um, and you want to give them a voice, so you might select 10 people from our population, even though that's not proportionately um, doesn't make sense. So let's look at a question. This is a proportionate one. It says a veterinarian wants to know how many medications has affected different breeds, and how many blue healers would you need for a proportionate stratified random sample of 50 dogs from this population. So they want to sample 50 dogs, and this is the population that uh, veterinarian serves. And so we can just look at the total population by adding 247 plus 138 plus 96 plus 172 and finally 222. And we see that there is 875 dogs in that population. So we just want to know how many blue healers there are. So if I take 172 divided by 875, we'll see that about 19%, 19.6 or something, are blue healers. So we take this 19.1965 and multiply it by our sample, which would be 50. So we would expect to sample about 10, because that was 9.8. So roughly about 10 blue healers we would use in our sample of 50. Now, suppose you want to make a sample of the AP students at Irondale, explain how you would make a stratified random sample of this. Well, you'd have to think about, it might depend on the question that you're asking. You might want to stratify it by grade level if you want to see the range there, or you might want to stratify it by gender. You might want to stratify it by race, depending on just what question you're asking. Let's say if we want to do it by grade level, you could take, and let's do a disproportionate one. Maybe you might want to take 30 people who are seniors, um, 30 people who are juniors, but uh, but sophomores and freshmen, You don't want them to be as included because they haven't taken as many AP classes. So maybe you want 15 of sophomores and 15 freshmen. Now that that would definitely be isolating this, so you're getting a higher representation of juniors and seniors. And so maybe somebody else wouldn't like this, so they would go in and do an equal representation where there's 30 of each. Even though this isn't proportionate, because there's not an equal number of students in each grade, um, it's all right to do this. Just keep in mind whatever you do is going to affect how you can talk about your results. And then once you divide it into those groups, and then you have to do the 1 through 4 for each of those, where you number the students, use a calculator or uh, a random number generator to get 30 values, and then stop when you get 30 values, and then you identify, can't spell identify, your sample. All right, now this is a proportionate random sample, so take a second and answer this question.